In our last video, we delved into creating a grid container and establishing rows and columns within our grid structure. Now in this video, we will explore the FR unit and repeat function, and we will dive into the properties that can be applied to grid items. In previous video, we created our grid columns using pixels, but now I am going to show you another way of creating columns using FR unit. Now to create, we just need to use grid template column, and here instead of pixels we are going to use FR, and then if we want another column we simply need to specify one more FR, and if we need third column just add one more FR like this. And if I save, now you can see we have three columns of equal width. Now here this FR stands for fractional unit, and it's a fantastic way to divide available space whether we want our columns or rows to take up equal portion or specific fraction of available space. By using this FR unit, we can easily divide the available space in the container to all of our grid items. Now as you can see, our grid items are now taking all the available width in our container. Now we can also use this FR unit on our rows if we want to increase the height of our grid items, like to cover this available space which is at the top and at the bottom. We just need to use grid template rows, and then here as you can see we have three rows, and now here this first value increase the height of our first row. Now if we want to increase the height for our second row we need to specify another value like this, and now you can see these two rows are taking equal height to fill this container. And if we want to specify the height of this third row double than these two, we just simply need to use 2FR. Now after saving you can see our third row is now taking double the height than these two rows. And this is how we can use FR unit instead of pixels or any other unit. Now let's talk about the repeat function. It's incredibly useful when we want to create multiple tracks with similar dimensions. Like here, we are creating three columns with this one FR unit. So instead of writing this, we can simply write repeat, and after that we need to specify how many columns we want to create, and we want to create three columns, and after that here we need to specify our unit, that is 1FR. By simply doing this you can see we have our three columns with this width. If we want to create two, we just need to change its value to 2 like this and just press save, and now you can see we have two columns. And this repeat function simplifies our code and keeps it clean. And now it's time to learn about our grid item properties. In a container, each column and row is assigned one grid item as the default setting. However, we have the ability to customize the grid items to span across multiple columns and rows according to our styling preferences. This allows for more flexibility in creating layouts that suit our needs. Now let me actually show you the very helpful dev tools that we have for CSS Grid. First we need to inspect our container. Then after inspecting this, we just need to hit this grid button that is in front of our grid container. After hitting this, now you can see we have the visual representation of our grid container, and here we have our grid lines, which is this 1, 2 and 3, and similar to these grid column lines we have these grid row lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And by using these numbers, we can place our grid items in our container wherever we want by using properties like grid column and grid row. Now let's say we want to change the position of this fifth element and we want to place this item at this fourth item position. Now how we can swap the position of this fifth element with this fourth item? Let me show you how. And to use our properties grid column and grid row, we need to use that properties on our grid items. First of all, we need to find our item, which is this fifth item. And here is our fifth item. And here we need to specify the value, which is grid column. Now to move this fifth item to this, we need to change its position, which start at column 1 and end at column line 2. So first value here we need is 1, which is for column start, and the second value is for our column end, which is 2. Now after hitting save, you can see now our fifth item is starting at column 1 and it's ending at column 2. But here is a problem because our fourth item is not where we want. And now we need to specify the rows for our fifth item. Now to do this, we just need to use grid row property, and this is the shorthand property for grid row start and grid row end. Now here we need to specify the value for our row. We want to start this at second row and end at third row. So here the first value is 2 and second value is 3. Now after hitting save, you can see now our fifth item is at correct position as well as our fourth item. And this is how we can change the position of our items in our grid container by using our dev tools and by using this visual representation. This makes our lives a lot easier. Now this grid column property is used to determine the placement of an item on specific columns in a grid layout. It allows us to define the starting and ending positions of the item within the grid. This property is actually a shorthand for two separate properties, grid column start and grid column end, which provide more detailed control over the placement of items in a grid. To position an item in desired location, we have couple of options. First, we can refer to the line number to specify the exact placement, and secondly, we can utilize the keyword span to determine how many columns the item will occupy. Now we have this grid row property, and this grid row property is used to determine the placement of an item within a grid by specifying the row it should be placed in. By using this property, we can easily define both the starting and ending position of an element within the grid. It's worth noting that the grid row property is actually a shorthand for two separate properties, grid row start and grid row end. When positioning an item, there are two options available similar to grid column. We can either specify the line number or utilize the keyword span to determine how many rows the item will occupy. Now let's say we want to span this first item all the way to the end. So how we can do this? And we can do this by simply going back to our first item, and here we need to use grid column. Now after this, we can span this first item in two ways. The first way is to use the line numbers. Here we want to start this item from this first line and we want to end this at this last line, which is 4. And we can also use the negative values that are at the bottom of our container, like this -2, -3, or this -1. So now if we set it to -1, and now our first item is spanning all the other two columns. And the second way of doing this same thing is by using span keyword. Here we need to specify how many columns that we want to span. In our case, we want to span three columns. This is first, second, and third. So here we need to use span keyword and then number of columns that we want to span, which is 3. Now after hitting save, you can see our first item is spanning all the other two columns, and now it's taking full width from left to right. Now please remember, we need to use our grid row and grid column property on our grid items, and this is how we can change the position of our grid item in our grid container. And now I want you to practice these properties, like you can practice changing the position of this ninth element to this fifth element, or you can change the position of any other element in our grid container. And by practicing this, you can understand this concept even better. So just a recap, by using our grid column and grid row property, we can change the position of our items, and also we can span our grid items. And that's all that I want to show you about grid item properties. And now in the next video, we are going to build a simple layout using CSS Grid in our previous project that we were building. That is it for today's video. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to join this exciting web development journey with us. And if you have any question or suggestions, you can put those in the comment section below. Until next time, keep coding, keep creating, and I will see you in the next video.